Let's get salty!
Everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video, and I wanted to go over something we've covered over like the past, well over a year. And it started with the warrior problem in Hearthstone. We had plenty of videos on it and all of that. But back in June of 2022, like almost like what, a year and a half ago, warrior was murdered. There was a balance patch that absolutely gutted the class, made control warrior unplayable, with like shield shatter being nerfed, tidal revenant being nerfed, Nelly being nerfed, from the depths being nerfed. Quite similar to what we saw with Druid lately, although Druid's not dead. They still got Dragon Druid, Treant Druid, and how like Jambre's like top 10 legend with like some heal armor Druid, so ain't dead yet. But warrior was absolutely massacred, became like the worst class outside of an enraged warrior that would pop up here and there. And I want to go over how from this time when warrior was just gutted, murdered, and how we have come all the way a year and a half later. And I see a lot of complaints about warrior. Warrior is OP, warrior is good, and it's been good for quite a bit. And I just want to go through the history of how many buffs, how many cards it took, because it was quite the, like, it's just amazing the damage that was done to the class. So we're going to go over that. If you enjoy the content on the channel, you feel like I've earned your subscription, please hit that sub button down below. Give the video a like, it helps us out a ton as we're on the road to 80,000 subscribers. After Pirate Warrior and Charge Warrior and Control Warrior were all new, like just totally nuked. They were destroyed from the game. People were like, you know, fine with it. They were kind of sick of Warrior, but it took like, there's another expansion, there was another expansion, and it was still bad. Then we had rotation, where we had Festival Legends come in, and it was still bad. And it got the devs even on the defensive. I remember the core set was announced. We got like Armadillo and like some pretty mid-ish cards in the core set. Like, how is this gonna help Warrior? And well, the devs were asked about it on Twitter, and Cora took a lot of flack. So I hope she takes solace and enjoyment, at least out of the success of Warrior now, where it was like, what was the design philosophy for Warrior last year? And she said, look, I'm not gonna defend it. It's not great. That's how bad Warrior was. It was like last across all, in like every mode, standard, wild, twist. Well, twist wasn't around then, but like duels, I think even arena, it was just the worst. And she said, look, I'm not gonna defend it. It's not great, but I will say there's a lot to look forward to them for this year. And Festival Legends came out. It didn't really move the needle for Warrior. I mean, we'll take a look at that set. How many cards had to get buffed? The rifts were just laughed upon as just being utterly atrocious, which they were at launch. They were terrible, and there wasn't much else going on for it. And then we got Titans, the launch of Odin. It was like, Warrior's back, and it still wasn't enough to catch up. And people were pretty harsh on it, going again to Reddit, again going after the devs, like, don't do it. It's just, it's a bad look. But regardless, she said 4 months ago, he said Warrior had a lot to look forward to in the Year of the Wolf. I wasn't lying. And then Control Warrior, shortly after the launch, as you could see, 39%. And then a bunch of more buffs happen, and some cards have happened, and now we're in a state. You take a look at H's replay. We move my stupid face here. We see Warrior 4th overall across all ranks in standard. It's like 5th overall in wild. In twist, it's dominating, but that's kind of unrelated. It's just a commons format. Arena, it's been up and down, but it was the best class for a little bit. And in duels, which is going to go away soon, it's the best class. And if you look in the meta and you look across, like, let's just go diamond through legend, we know that Control Warrior, it's doing pretty well. Highlander Warrior's right up there too. Mining Warrior at top 1000 legend. Warrior, Control Warrior again, 52%, and it's been present for quite some time. And as a Control Warrior enthusiast, someone who enjoys that quite a bit, I'm happy to see it. But how do we get there? How do we take this journey and get from a class being completely, utterly unplayable to where we're at now? And well, we'll start off with the Festival Legends. When this launched, it was a disaster. It looked so bad for Warrior. Verse Rift, this was a 2-mana claw at the time. It was 2 mana, gain +2 attack, gain 2 armor, then you had a finale. It was like, is this a real card? It's that bad. So that one got buffed. We had Chorus Rift, which only gave +2/+2. It was probably the most reasonable of them all, but still had to get a buff and got an extra stat buff. I believe Power Slider was a 1/2 or a 1/3, got buffed for the Menagerie archetype. Hasn't seen a lot of play, but pops up here and there. Rock Master Voon, which gives you a copy of all the different like tribal cards in your hand, was buffed from 4 mana to 3 mana. Another card where we're like, what is going on? Bridge Rift was buffed from 6 mana to 5 mana. Can you believe that this was at 6? And was, yeah, you can see the Rift package was so bad that every card had to be buffed. And even with that, Warrior didn't quite get there. They were just lacking like a good win condition. And well, Titans came along, and then finally, all of a sudden, Warrior started getting some good cards, but they still needed some help. Stone Skin Armor was some card draw from Warrior, which they were lacking. But it was a 3 mana, I believe 3/4 or 3/3. I can't remember the stats. I'll put it aside. But it got buffed to 2 mana as well. There have been nerfs along the way, by the way, like Battle Worn Faceless. Warrior got so good it started getting nerfed. How about that? We also saw a buff to Craftsman Armor, where it was like 4 mana. This would like attack a minion, then you would gain 4 armor. Then it was just made, well, you just, whenever you attack, gain 4 armor. And then it got nerfed to what it is now. So that had to get reworked. Sanitize also got nerfed, but it was an incredible card to go along for the Warrior package. Kazgroth got buffed, but arguably it was probably fine as a 4/4. But another one, Trials by Fire was a really good card, but another one that had to get buffed to 6 mana. And then of course you have the win condition of Odin for the rest of the game. After your hero gains armor, they gain that much attack for that turn. This was the card that really put Warrior on the map. Although when it launched, it wasn't super OP, it wasn't incredible. The support just wasn't there for it, right? The package that they needed. And once the Trial by Fire went down to 6, once the weapon got that initial buff, Control Warrior all of a sudden went from one of the worst archetypes of the game for well over a year to a point where it had to get nerfed. And we saw those nerfs, right? Sanitize the weapon, and all of a sudden Warrior is in a pretty good spot, and it is carried through. They haven't like just, you know, now that it's finally okay, we're not going to support it. We had Show down in the Badlands, which they did have to buff Blast Charge. This started at 3, so that trend kind of continued, but they've just gotten really good cards, right? Like Burning Heart hasn't seen a lot of play. You can't say that that's a bad card. Misfire's fine. Needle Rock Totem, like imagine this came out a year ago. It would be auto-included in most Warrior decks, and they've gotten so much good stuff now that Needle Rock Totem, 2 mana, 0/2 totem that draws a card, doesn't see play in like every Warrior deck. It certainly sees play. And then they try to make Taunt Warrior work. That didn't happen, but the whole like Excavate package, they got an insane AoE recently with Aftershocks, and you know, they did buff more cards, Detonation Juggernaut, Slagma, which is still just terrible, but now, you know, people are very happy. They got Brand, which has not been dominant yet, but I'm, again, always terrified about this card. The second it's good, it's going to feel pretty bad. And it's still like seeing play. People hit like high ranks, especially the cycle version, the duplicate version of Brand, which we talked about yesterday and how it kind of irks me. But that's you can watch yesterday's video for that. But another really good card in Badlands Brawler, then all of a sudden we're getting cards that not only are good, most of them don't even need a buff. They're just really solid cards. So we have gone kind of full circle in just like over a year's time, where Warrior was so bad. We saw Reddit threads. I complained a ton about it, about how the class was just receiving nothing. It wasn't feeling like Warrior when it was like decent with like Enraged Warrior, and Control Warrior was like a lost cause. And now we're at the point where we have a deck like Renathal Control Warrior, which we got Legend with, which No Hands Gamers like rank 1 Legend with, saw Meaty playing top 10 Legend with it, is a really, really strong deck, which means it's also becoming to be really, really complained about. You see a lot of complaints about cards like Odin in particular, which are justified, of course, when something is strong, and especially when something kills you from in hand with insane amount of damage, turning that armor into damage. You can see that, but it has been nice to see that full circle for Warrior from going from one of the most unplayable, unwinnable, just feels bad man classes to play to one that I can go with and enjoy, because yeah, it's competitive, it feels great to play, and probably doesn't feel super great to face if you're like more an aggressive strategy, but isn't that what Control Warrior's always been about? So let me know what you think about the journey that Warrior's been on, and what's the next class that deserves this kind of love? We've seen Priest kind of in the dumps, but I never want Priest to be good. We've seen Paladin in the past have this happen, and Shaman in the past. It's a natural cycle. Not every class can be great, can be dominant you know, at the same time. But it's nice to see that, you know, when a class is struggling for a while, yeah, the devs kick it up and they can create some pretty spicy stuff. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day and stay salty, my friends.